my friends, the great experiment.
The crew doesn't hate the XO, then he's not doing his job.
Good hunting is what you say.
It's part of the pattern, part of the plan.
Are they the lucky ones? That's what you're thinking, isn't it?
Welcome to Greatest Trek and Hot Cylon Summer. It's the new Star Trek podcast that's taken some time in between new Star Trek to watch the first season of Battlestar Galactica. I'm Adam Pranica.
I'm Ben Harrison.
I made a huge mistake over the weekend, and I want to run this by you as someone who lives in a neighborhood that is, let's just call it, in LA, you're basically the epicenter of all fireworks activity in the city.
Yeah, it does really feel that way sometimes.
So it's Sunday. It's 11 in the p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I have already tucked myself into bed. And the fireworks start going off. And these fireworks are close, Ben. They're like right on top of us.
Whoa.
I open up my back door and I look up, like directly up. That's where they are. They're right over us.
Is your wife in the backyard just firing off Roman candles?
It is uncanny how close these fireworks are. And Ripley, up until this moment, has been not your typical dog about fireworks. Not fearful, not cowering, not jumping into a bathtub. Because we have been very intentional about not reacting to fireworks in her presence.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a good thing for us. But these were so loud and so close that, like, we couldn't stop the body from reacting to the surprise. So she's starting to cower. She's not feeling good. I'm upset by this because I need to get some fucking sleep.
Yeah, got a Star Trek podcast to record in the morning.
I'm out in the back, and I watch this improvised fireworks show. And it finally comes to a close, and I count the seconds. Is it over? Was that the big finish? You suck! Is what I yelled as loud as I could, just knowing that the people who set them off in my neighborhood could hear that.
Yeah.
What this did was invited an even bigger fireworks show 10 minutes later.
Oh, what assholes. Oh, God.
I did the wrong thing. I was just upset. I was upset and tired. I didn't like what had happened to Ripley.
Yeah.
And instead, I made it an invitation. An invitation sent to assholes to do asshole things.
Yeah, these are already people who have zero consideration for anyone else around them. And now they've been given an excuse to really stick it to the people that they don't give a shit about.
Good people absorbing the shit that bad people dole out is just a fact of life and has been for time immemorial.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was just fucking sick of it. And look at what happened. It really blew back on me bad.
It really drives me crazy. I mean, like, and I say that in the, like, colloquial sense, but it's also sort of true in the literal sense because I have, firearms-related PTSD, and it can be really fucking upsetting to, like, be trying to go to sleep at night and having that shit get triggered by somebody who's just like, and it's like, in my head, I'm like, these are people that are just trying to have a good time, and this is a way that they can do that.
You don't have to care about Ben, and believe me, I do my best not to. Care about the dogs of the world. What kind of monster are you?
Care about the, like, soldiers home from the war,
Yeah.
But, it seems like it gets a little bit worse every year in LA, and...
I want to normalize you suck.
Yeah.
I really want to do that, so I'm not so alone in that pronouncement.
You suck, you jackass.
There's got to be some way to get it to stick, though, where it's like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
The way I did it wasn't right. I'm still rolling it around in my mind.
Yeah.
And in the way that I always do. What could I have done better during that interaction? That's my personal PTSD.
You want to know what my most, like, brave/cowardly move related to this was a couple of years ago?
Do we have time for this?
I walked over to my neighbor's house after he had set off a few. He was probably setting off like M80s. Like they weren't even like sparkly ones. They were just big bang fireworks. And it was like I could figure out which house it was because it was like it was coming from 3 houses down. And I walked over there and the guy was like out on his porch, just like throwing him into his driveway. And his direct next door neighbor was already out there like going like, hey man, come on, can you give it a rest? And this is probably like stolen valor or something, but I was like, hey man, my brother's staying with us and he's a veteran and this is really upsetting him.
Wow.
Wow.
Look at you stealing that valor.
I told this story to my wife recently and she was like, that is not okay to do.
Well, I mean, your brother-in-law is the veteran of some conflicts.
Yeah.
I think we both know that.
Yeah, I should have said in law to make it like slightly more accurate.
That's fun. It's fun when you're guilty about a thing and your wife comes in with the secondary ball kick.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, no kidding. Bad move. Hey, speaking of horrific conflicts, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah, hell of a segue into today's episode of BSG. It is the second of a 2-parter, a surprise cliff we were hung from at the end of the last episode. Let's see if we can free ourselves from this thing as we begin Hot Cylon Summer anew. It's Battlestar Galactica, Season 1, Episode 5. You can't go home again.
Mark 1 eyeball, sir.
Mark 1 eyeball.
Pretty good news for Hot Dog, being dragged out of space and thrown into the back of Boomer's Raptor.
Yeah. So how do you do this? You just like open the canopy?
Yeah, we're missing a scene here, huh?
I guess your flight suit is a spacesuit, and then they're also in flight suits, so they can open the door on the Raptor. Great news. Hot Dog's going to be okay.
I'm sure a big part of the call sign lifestyle, whether or not you're in the military, is like the razzing you get for that call sign that specifically you didn't choose for yourself. And I got to believe Hot Dog, anytime he goes into the mess hall, you know he's getting this from all sides, right? People are throwing hot dogs at him.
Oh, yeah.
People are sending him that meme of the lady getting hot dogs thrown at her face. It's got to be awful for him. People are like dipping his buns into water before putting them on the tray.
Oh, yeah, like Kobayashi.
Yeah. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. People play that scene from the Tom Green movie where he's got the strings tied to his fingers and he's playing the keyboard.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages? Daddy, would you like some sausage? Sausages, sausages.
How great is everyone else's call sign compared to Hot Dog? We got Starbuck is cool as hell, Apollo's great, Boomer's cool, Helo's cool, Crashdown even is better.
Flat Top is like, it's just a haircut, but...
Is Flat Top also kitchen related though?
Oh, yeah.
You want to get Flat Top and Hot Dog
You want
together.
to butterfly the hot dog and throw it on the Flat Top.
That's a hell of a flight crew, I think. So this is we're celebrating this rescue of Hot Dog, but everyone is still bumming about Starbuck not being found yet. And aboard the Audrey 2, Commander Adama is really pressing Hot Dog into the Flat Top about what he saw out there, and he's trying to extrapolate, like together with Boomer and Apollo, like where she might have gone at the end of this conflict. And he believes the entire episode that Starbuck is alive.
Yeah.
And in this scene, they're trying to figure out where she may be.
It's a very interesting thing about this show, which feels like in many ways doesn't exist. I mean, like, obviously, like, there's the original Battlestar, but, like, in many ways, this show feels like it relies on you having watched a little bit of Star Trek to, like, kind of know what's going on in a lot of cases.
You ever watch Star Trek?
But one thing that the Audrey 2 has zero of is sensors. Like, in any Star Trek context, it'd be like, well, we're in the orbit of this gas giant and there's a moon and we have sensors covering this entire area. We know where things go down when they go down, you know?
Well, like, they have sensors in one way. They have, like, the radar that Dwala always calls out bogeys from.
Right.
But You'll recall a couple episodes ago, like, they can't use sensors to find water on planetary bodies.
Yeah.
Like, they got to go out and do this the old-fashioned way.
They can't scan for life forms, probably.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Anyways, Hot Dog doesn't have a lot of great intel on what happened to Starbuck. I mean, it was so green. Like, this is his first combat mission. So, Commander Adama is pretty miffed at this and huffs off, but Apollo is still there, and he's like, hey, bud, like, attaboy, you earned these, like the gift that you get as a kid from the pilot of your commercial airplane. He gives him the, like, little plastic flight wings.
I feel like this scene needs to happen in this episode and not the last one, because you need a little bit of time to separate the moment that Hot Dog went rogue to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you need at least a little bit of time to lose that, because I think if you pin him after doing that, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So we cut to where Starbuck is. She went down hard in Mexico, Adam.
Yeah, she lands in Juarez. And I love the mystery of this. Like, you only see basically like a prone cowboy shot of Starbuck being dragged over these rocks, and you can't tell if it's some native animal or not that's dragging her because of how she's being dragged, like that pull, wait, pull, wait. But it's her parachute. And this looks so painful to me. Like, there's something about the size of the rocks on this planet that make it worse than any other size of rocks that could be there.
Yeah. It's like a beach in the south of France. It's like perfectly the wrong situation.
These are the wrong rocks. This is like what it's like to go to the beach or like to a river in places outside of Seattle. Like, you have to wear sandals because your feet don't conform to the size of these wet rocks. You just twist an ankle every time.
Yeah. So she's got to cut her parachute off, which is a little bit of a struggle. And I really like the like order of operations in this episode, because she's kind of like catching her breath and getting a sense of where she is and what's going on around her. We cut back up as the thought is entering my head, like, God, I wonder how much air she has in that flight suit. And they are in CIC talking about the same thing. Like, she's missing. We're going to start this search. We think, she probably went down on this moon, because we're going to hope that she didn't go down on the gas giant, where she would be totally irradiated immediately. And if so, she's got 46 hours of air.
What do you think is the right amount of air for a spacesuit in a circumstance like this? I thought a lot about this. Like, as soon as they put the 46 hours on the board, I was like, well, that's a good amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's good.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like 48 hours would be like, that's a squishy number, but 46 feels...
You know what I wonder is that, like, the scientists who made the EV suits for this military apparatus had to have thought about the right amount of time. And I'm sure a great consideration is, if you're just floating out into space, you don't want to be alive for 2 weeks, I bet.
Right.
Like, end it after 48 hours. That's more humane.
Better to asphyxiate than to die of, like, thirst, probably.
Yeah.
From just, like, a personal suffering standpoint.
I wonder if that's the math they do.
Who knows? So the search is going bad. They really don't have a lot to go on, but they're going to treat this moon as being kind of the area of operations to get search and rescue going.
If it's gas giant or moon as the option, moon seems like a spot to find a survivor.
Yeah, but it's a little bit like, looking for the shekel you dropped, in the town square because the light is better than where you dropped it.
Fair. Yeah.
They talk about, like, the flight of raiders that they had contact with in the last episode, like, what was up with that? And their discussion centers around, well, if they are sending a little group of raiders like that to all of the planets nearby that might have resources that we could be going and looking for, we might have seen evidence of a much broader search operation that the Cylons are doing. And if the Cylons are looking everywhere where there might be supplies, it's probably, safe to assume that they'll be onto us soon enough.
It's such an interesting description of the way that these Cylon patrol ships can be considered, right? Like, these aren't folks going out and coming back after an 8-hour mission. These patrol ships can be out for a long, long time, and that actually works in their favor. Like, these folks probably, I call them folks, these Cylon patrol ships probably aren't going to be due back for days.
Well, folks, we know that Cylon ships... Your little Obama speech to the Cylons.
Like if the totality of your mission is days or weeks before you're even going to be missed, what Adama's saying here makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
Find her. I will.
He gets a call from the president and sort of has to defend this a little bit, but she's like, satisfied. And then we cut to her little hang with Dr. Baltar, who I guess is just there to get her to sign some papers, but also to have a sexy conversation with his friend Six, who has a whole new getup in this episode. She's traded the red in for a light blue dress and is kind of making a lot of the same cases to him as we learned about in the CIC about the Cylons will definitely also be coming along at some point. Shouldn't you be arguing with the president about maybe leave this pilot behind and keep going?
This scene felt different to me from the last few Gaius Baltar number 6 scenes, because this is the only one that I can remember where you get Baltar and Six in the foreground and you get a third character in soft focus in the back between them. Seeing Roslin in these scenes where they're making out and having this conversation felt like a unique property here.
Yeah. Well, it also seems like it's going a little bit differently. He's talking to Six, but the president is sitting right there and doesn't seem to notice that.
Yeah. In the way that others seem to have noticed it before.
Yeah. Because then at the end, he's had his hand up because they were making out and he has to play it off like he was doing some sort of wrist exercise.
Yeah.
She was just, signing off on some requisitions for him, and he gets up to leave holding the requisitions in front of his groin to obscure what's happening there.
Is number 6 making him jack off when they fuck? What's actually physically going on there, you think?
Or can she just make him feel like he is getting stimulated?
We need to know more about that.
Yeah, the camera doesn't pan down enough in these scenes, I want to see hog.
It's a question of resources, right? Six convinces Baltar to bring this up to President Roslin. This is just one character, an important character, but just one, and we're cooking a lot of resources for this one. Why don't we needs of the many this situation, perhaps?
Well, Roslin will take that under advisement, and we cut back down to Planet Mexico, where Starbuck's radio is not in great shape. She's taped off what looked like maybe a hole in her spacesuit, and that made me concerned that maybe their count of how much oxygen she might have could be way off.
I interpreted that as being a part of her knee injury when she landed. I thought it was less about hole and more about what was going on in her leg.
It was just kinesiology tape that she was putting on there.
Yeah, maybe. How much did you like the technology of the atmospheric sensor and how it color codes to things, and specifically how shit brown it turns when it's exposed to this atmosphere? You don't need to know anything about this code to know that that's bad.
It's pretty unambiguous. Yeah. I wondered if you had landed on a planet where the sun that it orbits around has a different spectrum of light that it shows. Does that green not read correctly in certain places?
Great call. Yeah. I don't know. She seems to understand what's going on, though.
Yeah, and I think it's it's a really nice piece of design in the script and execution by the props department, because it's very easy to understand what that thing is and how it works without any exposition surrounding it. And she is sad to learn that this is not a breathable atmosphere. And we cut up to the atmosphere itself, where Apollo is flying a Viper on a, search and rescue mission. They're, I guess, just like looking out the windows to see if they see her, basically.
This is a tough mission in the way that you've just described. Like, it's low altitude on an unfamiliar planet, and you can barely see through the atmosphere at all, so they got to be super low. Yeah. It's dangerous work.
Dangerous, bumpy as hell, no fun. We cut over to Caprica, where Hilo and Boomer have been hunkered down in the bunker.
They can't stay there forever, even if they do have all of these supplies. It's funny how they both don't believe they could, but there's still that attitude of, we could if we wanted to. But seriously, we can't, right? But we could because of all this stuff. But like our sworn duty is about like both pleasing that booty and like getting a lift off the planet. But I think we can all agree we have enough Pop Tarts to last us for our entire lives, right?
We could make a whole new thing here.
Yeah.
I could carve you a bathtub.
A bathtub?
I love a bath. It's my favorite way of relaxing.
It's funny, like, you need two people to toss this around conversationally, right? If it was just one of them who had found this fallout shelter with all this stuff, I think one person could convince themselves that I could make a life here. But with two, they talk themselves out of it.
Yeah, so they want to find a raptor. They're going to get their supplies together and head out today. But first, Hilo's going to go up and make them some breakfast. But, that thing he's cooking Pop-Tarts in ain't the only toaster up here.
I was surprised at how cavalier they were about using the space. Like, they're not just confined to the basement. They're going up into the restaurant and making use of the tools and the cooking implements and so forth. I was shocked by this. And not just that they would use the kitchen, but how Hilo doesn't, like, sneak up the stairs, look out the window. Like, they've gotten used to this. Yeah. They've gotten sloppy.
There was one piece of prop design that I thought was a little bit of a misstep in this episode. You know how every piece of paper in Battlestar has all the corners clipped off? Pop-Tart should have the corners clipped off, shouldn't it?
That would have been fun. That's a fun detail.
Yeah.
What do you make of Boomer walking up the stairs at exactly the wrong time? Like, being that casual about breakfast? Like, she could be wearing a towel here. Like, also, Hilo hasn't been up there for longer than a minute. Hold your fucking horses, Boomer.
Yeah.
Breakfast will be ready when I say it's ready.
Everybody knows how long toasters take. Like, the amount of time it takes to toast something hasn't changed in, like, 70 years.
Has a toaster ever created this much anxiety in any other scene in any other TV show or movie? I was really biting my nails at this moment. This is a great performance by the actor who plays Hilo here.
And a great performance by the toaster.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he can't do that without the toaster.
Turns into a great big firefight. Hilo's able to headshot the first of the two Cylons that are in there, but the other one just absolutely opens up, and it's like a jump over the counter, and pots and pans are crashing down on his head, and we fade to white.
A fight in a kitchen, I think, was popularized, like, in this country, at least, by like John Wick movies or something?
I feel like that's kind of a thing that we've had for a long time. I mean, like, famously, the Terminator throws that guy into the kitchen and he lands on the flat top.
It sure does seem like a kitchen, especially a commercial kitchen, is the greatest spot for a fight like this because it's so loud.
Yeah.
Like, all those metal surfaces clanging, it's great.
Raptors chasing Lex and her brat brother through the commercial kitchen.
Our brother was fine.
What was his name? Billy?
His name is Boxey also, Ben.
Oh, yeah. Lex and Boxey. So, we cut back over to the planet that Starbuck has crash landed on. She is kind of making an appeal to the Almighty as she hikes.
We're
running a little low on O2 and I could use the lucky break. No? Okay, just thought I'd mention it.
She's like made her mind up that she's going to try and get up to high ground to help anybody that might be flying around looking for her. But she comes over a ridge and finds the Cylon raider that went down with her. She gets up close to it, and this crash is gross. It's bleeding.
I like getting to understand the size and scale of this ship finally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know for sure how big a Viper is. We've never known really how big these raiders are because we've only ever seen them in space. But it is so neat to get a sense of its scale.
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel like the face is also the worst part to be in front of? If you're walking up to it,
Yeah.
I would give the face a wide berth.
Come at it from the side, like a.
Yeah.
Speaking of raptors,
Clever girl.
that did catch in my craw that she approached it from that angle, but she's like pretty psyched about this in a like, well, I'll just fix this thing up and this is my ticket off this planet way. That I was like, isn't it just going to be computer chips inside? Like, on what basis do you think there's going to be controls that you can use in there?
It's really interesting to me how the damage was such a specific part of her project and her way of thinking, right? Like, this ship looks like it blew its own brains out because there's a kind of blood coming out of its temple area.
Yeah.
If you were going to keep going with my, like, face metaphor of this ship, it seems like the rest of the hardware is going to work if it's a conventional type of ship, which she doesn't know yet.
Right.
Lord, I owe you one.
Track the odds. We're gonna find her. Excuse me.
Continued good luck.
Thank you.
Up in CIC, Tig is talking about how fuel is starting to be a challenge because, and I thought this was like a cool bit of science writing, like they have to use fuel at all times when they're flying in atmosphere, but when they're in space, you just use it for velocity changes.
Makes a lot of sense.
So they're burning through it, and Tig is also just talking about like the practicality of this. Like, this is, you know, one pilot, we are throwing tons and tons of resources at this, and Adama is not trying to hear this. He fucking blows his stack at Tig.
I'm just saying, committing the entire fleet to this
I
service.
said no!
One of the several stack blows that Adama has this episode. It's unusual, right? This is a character we're used to seeing extremely buttoned up and in control of his emotions. It surprised me.
Yeah, the stack is on tinterhooks.
Mm-hmm.
In this context.
It's nighttime on Cylon-occupied Caprica when Hilo comes to after, I mean, he has to have been knocked out for a while because it was morning when that fight popped off. It's now evening, and he does something that suggests maybe a brain injury because I don't think you can just walk out into the street screaming Boomer's name, right? Like, the basement's been ransacked, Boomer's gone, and he just goes out into the street yelling her name. What are you doing?
Do the math here, Hilo. Like, you were getting shot at.
This is like Lost Child instructions, right? Like, if you get separated, you meet back at the place, right? I don't think it does him any good to go out there.
No. I mean, the only reasonable conclusion of her not being there is she's been taken. And
Sharon! I got your Pop Tarts! Do you think about making a life there in the basement after this? She's gone. It seems like a lot of the food remains. Like, stuff's been tossed.
yeah.
That's not ideal, but I don't know. Maybe they thought he was dead, those Cylon Centurions.
I know you can survive on Pop-Tarts, but can you really thrive on Pop-Tarts?
You can't. Did I ever tell you the first, like, corporate job I ever got out of college? I would eat Pop-Tarts for breakfast, and I did every day out of the vending machine. I did this for a year. And with absolutely zero other lifestyle changes, I gained 8 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard of the freshman 15, but the new job 8. Yikes.
All I had to do was stop eating Pop Tarts, and the fat just melted right off of me.
Wow. No kidding.
Probably nice to keep them in your emergency kit, though, right? That's a nice little treat.
Yeah, pretty shelf stable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming since it was coming out of a vending machine that these were the kind with the layer of frosting on top.
I was a big idiot, thinking that was breakfast.
Those were always too sweet for me. Like, I like a Pop-Tart, but I will always take the one without the frosting.
My parents always bought the ones without frosting when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Can't make it too good for the kids.
I think that's just a better balanced tart.
Yeah. I don't think they were thinking that way.
Starbuck opens up the toaster that she's got on her planet, and it's full of meat. Surprise. And the meat seems like it might be still a little bit alive at first. Like, it reacts to her touch.
Are you alive?
I think Starbuck's going to want to cut against the grain so the ship stays tender. She's really kind of hacking and slashing at it in a way that's just not going to make for a satisfying chew.
Yeah. She at least let it rest for 10 minutes before starting to cut it up, right?
Make good choices.
I love how this thing moved and reacted to the knifing.
Yeah.
It's great. Like, it's real Cronenberg-y in there, isn't it?
Yeah. Or like that Tool music video where the guy opens up the pipe. There's chicken guts flowing through it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Tyrol is up to his elbows in broken Vipers on the flight deck.
That's because the atmosphere is not a great place for the Vipers to be flying.
Yeah. All of the crap in the atmosphere is gumming up the works, and I think they're down 13 working Vipers, and Apollo is pissed that he is not down there looking for Starbuck, and so he kind of barks at Tyrol and walks up to CIC.
I'm the CAG, you're the chief. Just make it happen.
We get to look at the photo mosaic where they show how much of the planet they've actually surveyed, which I really liked. I was kind of hoping we would get to see this get filled in a little bit more by the end of the episode, but I thought that was a really neat graphic. And Apollo is kind of comes up to the flight deck with the opposite idea of what Ty has been arguing for. He's like, hey, we just aren't devoting enough resources for the needs of the One right now, and I'd like to suggest we take the people that are flying around patrolling all the civilian ships in the fleet and get them down there on the planet's surface looking for Starbuck.
Not only that, the civilian fleet itself.
Yeah.
Let's get them involved.
You gotta be kidding.
Ty pushes back on this, and Apollo accuses Ty of wanting to leave Starbuck for dead, which I think reputationally makes a lot of sense, but you can't say that if you're Apollo, because you also have very personal feelings that are interfering with your judgment.
Yeah.
You can't throw personal feelings rocks in a glass house, right?
Yeah, I've always said that. People find it very confusing when I do, though.
He's the personal feelings pot calling the glass house personal feelings. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's pretty artful way of putting it.
I think that's better. Yeah.
I kind of wish that there had been another poker conflict between Tig and Starbuck at the beginning of this episode so that this felt even dirtier,
Yeah.
A little bit more recency would have been a fun element to this, but I understand why they couldn't do that. Down on the planet, you hear about people in meat space, right, Adam? Starbuck literally enters meat space when she goes aboard this Cylon Raider.
It's pretty shabby in there.
Ugh. So fucking foul.
It's just all alien guts and parts from the plumbing aisle of a local home center.
Yeah, and raspberry preserves splattered all over them.
I think a lot about the production when I watch a scene like this because the space is so confined and there's so much drippiness to it.
Yeah.
Like, once you're in there, once you're Katie Sackhoff and you've gotten to set and you're in the space, like, you gotta just power through all those scenes, right? For continuity. Like, you can't just leave and go get a cigarette anytime you want one.
Yeah.
Stuff's not gonna match up.
Yeah. The space helmet, I feel like, must be a total pain in the ass to act in most of the time, but probably kind of a saving grace in a scene like this, because it's at least you're not getting the crap on your face until such time as you're like pulling the helmet off to put the stuff in your face.
Right.
She realizes that like her air supply might be refillable based on what is in this machine. Meanwhile, back up on Audrey 2, Apollo gets a call from the president.
I thought this was a scene to redeem Apollo here, because I hated that get it done moment that he does at Tyrol earlier. I like seeing him down on the floor creeper, like doing the work and participating.
Yeah. It did seem like he was kind of like bossing Tyrol around earlier in a way that he kind of pulled rank on him too.
Yeah.
But he gets this call from the president who's like, so the Combat Air Patrol down on the planet, what gives? Doesn't that kind of make us all sitting ducks?
Yes, Madam President, it was my idea.
Your idea.
Does Colonial One have to participate in the civilian ship search and rescue aspect of this? That's one thing I wondered. Like, she looks out her window and she's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Little patch of turbulence, guys? What gives?
Yeah. It's not just Ty that has a problem with this. It's not just Gaeta that has a problem with this. When it comes from the president, and she's just asking questions,
right?
You know, do you think this is a good idea? Have your personal feelings entered into this decision making? Kind of seems that way.
Get as many birds up in the air as you can, and you find our girl.
Over on the Audrey 2 bridge, Gaeta's telling Adama about all of these down Vipers. They're running out of fuel. They're burning too fast. Adama wants a refueling tanker sent to them, and Gaeta has a face about this.
Is there a problem, Mr. Gaeta?
Don't tell on yourself with your face. This is something that I've worked very hard on, and I fail most of the time. But the reason for the face is that Gaeta has already ordered the Vipers back.
Yeah.
Oh, no. He's made assumptions. This is not something that Adama approves of or appreciates. And Adama, like, to his credit, he's not, like, tearing Gaeta apart. His eyes are fixed on the countdown to Starbucks' suit, and it goes all the way down to 0. And this does not change Adama's mind about sending a refueling tanker down to those Vipers.
You have your orders.
Yes, sir.
It's weird, like, if you're Gaeta in this scene and you've seen an explosion happen at Ty earlier, you got to be thinking you're going to get blown up on here.
Yeah.
The tension in this scene is the non-blow up.
Right. The like, this is not, I'm not in the minefield that,
right.
Or I am in a minefield. I just don't know where the mines are, I guess. It's Ty that gets his ass kicked out of CIC because they're like, so the 46-hour mark just went by. Why don't you say we pack this up and leave the lady that beats us all at poker to rot on that planet's surface? And Thomas, like, no fucking way. That is not what we're doing. She might have a special air supply that nobody knows about.
This salute and turn on your heels and walk away. Like, everything about this is very crisp and formal when Ty is relieved of duty and sent away. It felt to me very much like Live Long and Prosper in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. Like, when you do a formal thing in a way that's a fuck you, that's what this felt like to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So Starbuck has found an air supply in the form of a gross meat hose that she has taken a great big suck off of. She's like looking around this meaty space for controls to fly this fucking thing. And the first thing she finds is actually Weps, which good to know where it is.
We gotta have Weps. He's the key.
It's the most surprising control to find first, I think.
Yeah. Nothing is labeled in here, you know. It's all just meat.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to know your cuts of meat when you're strolling through this butcher case. She doesn't know. She's just grabbing bone.
Yeah.
And it's shooting bullets.
So in CIC, they find out that President Roslin is like in the process of boarding the Audrey 2, and Adama is like, what the fuck? And is pretty upset that this is coming out of left field. She comes and gets Tyrol and the Adama boys together and kind of psychoanalyzes the Adamas and says, like, this is all about Zach. Like, you're doing this for Starbuck because she's your last connection to him, and you're putting all existing humans' lives into unacceptable danger and also burning up all of our fuel and wrecking all of our equipment on a personal connection that you need to, like, get dispassionate about. And this is actually surprisingly persuasive. Like, Commander Adama backs off his position finally and calls into the controls that the search is off.
I really love how President Roslin frames it. It's about the scarcity of resources, but it's also about the scarcity of human life.
Right.
And when she uses the Adamas as an example of how fucked they are as a culture, that really cuts deep.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's a great bit of business by her because nothing else has grabbed them by the lapels and shaken them into understanding all the destruction they're causing. Like, by going personal this way, it kind of shakes them out of this state and gets them to understand. I really love how wordless the reaction here is too. Like, for Apollo to look at his father and then go for the phone and then hand it to his dad. Like, they don't talk about this.
Yeah.
There's a wordless agreement that this is what's going to happen.
They're like, yeah, she right.
Yeah.
They call it in.
It's a good moment for them. A good moment that follows a lot of bad moments between the two. Like, they have not been on the same page for a long time.
Yeah. They've not been on the same page that has all the corners snipped off for some reason.
How exciting is it when Starbuck gets the Cylon Raiders engines going? It feels momentous and joyful. Like, this is like Tom Hanks making fire in the volleyball movie. Like, this is the first thing to feel good about in a long time for her. And not only that, like, she doesn't just get the ship to work, but she kind of digs the ship and how it flies. Like, game, respect, game style.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, it's good. So she starts taking off. The Adamas kind of post-game their conversation with Roslin, and they're like, wow, yeah, we were wrong and she was right. That was nuts, but also we're really sad about Starbuck. And they get ready to jump to hyperlight, and you know, the clock is ticking, everything is counting down. It looks like they're going to abandon Starbuck. She won't know where they went. And suddenly, contact with a Cylon Raider. I love this whole sequence of we just don't know, like, what Starbuck's plan is even going to be, like how she's going to convince the flight of Vipers that come out to meet her that they should not shoot this Cylon Raider. She lucks out. They're only sending Apollo and Hot Dog out there, which I was like, how did Hot Dog jump the line to be one of the two pilots that gets to go?
I mean, that tells you what a scarce resource pilots are at this moment in time.
I guess so. And Vipers, because his Viper scrubs its launch because it's not able to go.
This is such a Top Gunny moment, though. This whole sequence, like, from the moment Duala calls out the contact to Hot Dog being stuck in the tube, like, launching alert fighters is straight out of the end of Top Gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flying inverted, Starbuck over our Maverick.
Yeah. And that, like, suddenly one pilot has, like, super skills where the other one can't land a hit to save his life. Like, you know, I mean, I know that we all believe that Starbuck is the best pilot, but I thought Apollo would be able to, like, land one hit.
I think he did land one hit.
Yeah, maybe
it was
just one.
just a grazer. It just hit meat. That's a flesh wound, right?
I guess so. Yeah. So, yeah, he radios in like, this Cylon is flying in formation with me. And then he looks up, and written in tape on the wings of the Raider are the words Starbuck. We're not going to have to change the whiteboard in the president's ship today. Starbuck makes it into the launch bay, and they load her out on a gurney. She gets a visit from Commander Adama in 6 Bay. She's high as hell. I like this detail about the scene.
What a moment here. I mean, the very last time you saw them together, it was Adama telling her she needed to leave before he broke shit.
Yeah.
And now it is such a paternal moment between them.
Yeah, and he's like referred to her as being part of his family. And
yeah,
it makes me understand the previous scene better. Like,
yeah,
that way you can get so mad at somebody that is family that like you kind of can't really with somebody that isn't, because like when it's family, like you know that you're going to process that anger at some point.
Right. Really magical. And I love how tight the camera is on both of them. Like you're really in there to where the feelings exist. Why does this scene work, do you think? Why does it hit so hard? Because we're only 5 episodes in. We know these characters only that much. I was really touched by this moment. Like this felt like a great moment of drama between 2 characters here that is earned in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just because it's the last cigar in the universe.
Yeah, that's really important. Can you imagine how hard a cigar hits while you're on hospital-grade painkillers?
Oh, man.
How hard did this episode hit, Ben? Did you like it?
So say we all.
So say we all.
I thought this was a really fun one. I mean, very gross. All of that stuff that takes place inside the Raider, super gross. It makes me wonder, is the guy that Hilo headshotted also bleeding out back on Caprica?
This is a great question. Like, I want to know if what they learn about the Cylon Raider is exportable out to all Cylon technology.
Yeah, and I've been thinking like more and more about the Cylons because I think that the way they are introduced as this, like, you know, it's robots that rose up and destroyed civilization, maybe just because of my Star Trek biases, heavily implied hive mind, you know, collective intelligence to me. And increasingly it is clear that each Cylon is an individual, and not only that, but like their society sucks. Like there are some that get to do like cool, awesome shit. There are some that aren't read in on any of what the Cylons are up to. There are others that are like stuck just like wandering around a city on Caprica looking for people, which has got to be boring.
Doesn't it feel like the very thing they rejected from their relationship to humanity? Like the Cylons rose up against their creators in the same way that you might expect Centurion Cylons to rise up against the humanoid Cylons.
Yeah, and like, do they all agree that like genocide is the path that Cylons should be taking?
I think we know that for sure. I mean, the 6 that's on Caprica has said as much, that there's a question there. Yeah, so I feel like that, and like the, you know, just seeing the flesh of the inside of one was kind of a trip. And I thought this was a good episode. How about you? I really thought this was strong. And this is, I know that these qualities exist, you know, across all the episodes we've seen, but I was really noticing a lot of shot composition stuff to help tell the story and to help us understand these characters better. That first scene in the CIC where Adama is making it clear that they're going to do search and rescue come hell or high water, like the camera is looking at him through that tactical plot window with the green display on it.
Right.
When we're on the side of Ty and Gaeta, but when we reverse the shot and we're with Adama, like his vision is clear. It's unobstructed. It helps us understand his way of thinking versus how they're thinking about things. And as much as I love that moment at the end, the bedside moment between Starbuck and Adama, That moment where Apollo and his dad talk just before doing the FTL jump to leave Starbuck behind, when Apollo's like, why did you do this? Would you do this for me?
Why did you do this?
When his dad tells him that if it were him, they would never leave. In a different actor's hands who doesn't have these magical qualities, I think that's cheesy and bad. But Edward James Olmos saying this, I believed it. I believed it 1,000%. It was a breathtaking moment for me to watch that.
You know what that performance really reminded me of was Shatner saying the word human when he's delivering his eulogy for Spock.
Yeah.
Human.
Great comp.
Great moment. Let's see if there's any great moments for us in the P1 inbox. What do you say?
Yeah, we've got a contact.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
And we've got a P1 here of a personal nature. It's from M, and it's to Danny. Their message goes like this. You did it! You finished watching all of New Trek. Eventually, I will finish Season 5 of Discovery, but I have so enjoyed getting to go along with you on your New Trek journey and listening to the pod along the way. Thanks for introducing me to the TGG GT universe. Here's to another 400,000 words of writing and a lot more Trek time to come.
Wow. That's a lot of writing.
400,000 words. Is this texts that they're sending each other while watching New Trek? What does that mean?
I wrote and never published a novella in my 20s, and it was 40,000 words, and that was just a staggering effort on my part. I cannot imagine 10xing that. That's amazing.
Cut to me reading this manuscript. You must destroy the manuscript. No one should ever read it.
I know, Werner.
I honestly don't know if it still exists. I couldn't tell you if I still have the file.
You better make sure it doesn't exist. Someone writing something that they think is very important in their 20s, burn it with fire.
No, it was silly. It was comedic. I didn't think it was important.
Okay.
It was a laugh, but yeah. Hey, thanks, Danny and M. Our next P1 is from Guy English, and it's to you and me. It goes like this. You sons of a gun, you actually did it. I warned you not to listen to us dummies, but you did it anyway. We're the six in a sexy dress, in your heads, and now you're more than a little bit embarrassed. Like Baltar and ending humanity. Ben, as the newbie, we're told the Cylons have a plan. What is it, and how do they carry it out vis-a-vis taking dumps?
Great question.
A great question, especially in the context of this episode. If Cylons are made of meat, they poop.
Yeah.
Everybody made of meat poops.
Well, the thing's got to have a tailpipe.
You know, like I want to see a Cylon Centurion like reading the racing form while he's pinching one off. You know, and Hilo like accidentally walks into the bathroom of the restaurant and discovers that. How about that scene, Ronald D. Moore?
Number 6 hikes up her dress and just drops a total growler into the Colonial 1 bathroom.
The president is like, oh, God. Wait a second. My cancer is gone? What?
Do fantasy Cylons take real shits?
Oh, man. Baltar's brain is starting to look a little bit like the inside of RFK Jr.'s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what their plan is. I mean, the plan seems to just be like genocide at all costs, but they did it. I also want to see like a Cylon like getting shit for screwing up, because like they tried to do a genocide all in one fell swoop and they blew it.
You blew it.
There's 50,000 people left. Like they've got to be so mad at somebody, right?
Yeah. Wouldn't you be? Wouldn't you have to be?
Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Guy English. Nice to hear from you, Guy, by the way.
Hey, Priority 1 messages are a great way to support the production of our show. You can write one and have those words come out of our mouths by going to MaximumFun.org/Jumbotron. Very reasonable given the vast audience we've got, and doing one makes this show possible financially, so thank you.
That's true. Hey, Adam.
Step in.
Did you find yourself an Edward Larkin?
Edward Larkin. Ben, the Top Gun comparison to the scene at the end was so precise that they actually do the patter of like, alert fighter's going to be launched in 45 seconds. It'll be over in 45 seconds. That sequence of dialogue is in Top Gun.
Is it really?
Well, shit, 10 minutes. This thing will be over in 2 minutes. Get on it.
So it's an homage.
It just delighted me. I'll always have a soft spot for the movie Top Gun, and I love a television show that's clearly been inspired by it. So I'm going to make that moment my Edward Larkin. What about you?
Good times. I'm going to give it to Hilo for yelling for Boomer when he goes out in the street.
Yeah. That's what number 6 yells when she uses a toilet on Colonial 1. No one can hear her, though. She can yell as loud as she wants.
Yeah. Why does that make Baltar come? What the hell, man?
Weird. Yeah.
Adam, our next episode is season 1, episode 6, Litmus, when a new copy of Doral, a Cylon who had previously been exposed while serving as the Galactica's public relations officer, sneaks aboard and blows himself up, killing 3 people. Commander Adama and President Roslin must finally make public the terrifying secret known only to a select few. Cylons now look like humans. I can hear Tig's complaints about the riots.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah, you know he's got that comment chambered. Do you remember Doral cigarettes?
I don't know if I have ever encountered Doral cigarettes.
I don't know why. Yeah, that word just stuck in my brains.
Yeah.
Doral cigarettes. The kind an especially grizzled smoker would prefer, I think.
Yeah.
Ben, for our final segment on the show, we're going to check in with the warning buoys.
Prepare a buoy and launch it when ready.
Warning buoys.
An emergency buoy.
A warning buoy.
These are messages sent out into the world by FODs in order to share their love of our programming and also make it clear that it's not for everyone. I've got one here, a 5-star review that was posted on Apple Podcasts. And these 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, I just want to say, are very meaningful. We've got thousands and thousands of them on both of our shows. I think they are a currency for podcasts like ours.
Yeah.
It legitimizes us. It keeps us buoyed near the surface of whatever programmatically is happening to keep us on the top of whatever lists that are being kept in these places. It's the easiest thing to do, and as we've said before, 5 stars and what your favorite episode is enough to make a difference to us. So here's that 5-star message. It's written by Cindy Lee, and they're from Canada. Headline, oh dear. I was going to leave a review about how consistently funny, insightful, and quotable Ben and Adam are, but after hearing the reveal that they'll be reviewing the first season of Battlestar Galactica, I died. I'm a ghost now. Can't wait to listen from the grave. RSVP Sydney Lee.
Wow.
Tragically unable to listen to our first season of Hot Cylon Summer.
Yeah. Sorry, Sydney. But thank you for the nice 5-star review.
Yeah.
It seems like you even if you're no longer on this mortal coil, you can go over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review, and we sure appreciate the folks who do.
Yeah. Way to do something good on your way out, Sydney.
Well, that's just about it for us today. Really appreciate everyone who tuned in. Be back at you next week with another great episode, but we're going to leave it with our capable producer, Wynde, here. Take it away, Wynde.
Greatest Trek is an Uxbridge Shimoda podcast on the Maximum Fun Network. It's hosted by Ben Harrison and Adam Pranica, and it's produced and edited by Wynde Priddy. Next week on Hot Cylon Summer, it's Battlestar Galactica Season 1, Episode 6, Litmus. Special thanks to all the Max Fun members who support on a monthly basis. You could set up a membership and get instant access to all the great bonus content at MaximumFun.org/join. We really appreciate it. You could also support for free by subscribing to the Greatest Trek YouTube channel or by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your podcatcher. You can also just tell someone you know about the show. Thanks to Nick Ditmore, who created the art, and Adam Ragusia, who composed the theme music. Also thanks to Bill Tilley and Rob Adler for running all of the @Greatest Trek social media pages that you can find and follow online. And be sure to use the hashtag Greatest Trek when you post about the show. You can also sign up for the Greatest newsletter at gach.biz/mail. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on Greatest Trek.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows, supported directly by you.